I'm gonna be honest with everybody, I had a totally different script for this video originally. I was gonna mention how beloved this character was and how it's been an age since we've seen this character playable, despite his interesting set of moves and fun gameplay mechanics in the games he featured in. But then, Aftermath happened, and now, just like that, we're playing Fujin again in the latest installment to the MK franchise, so a bit of a video rework was at hand. Before anybody says anything, no. I had no idea Fujin was going to be in Aftermath. It was a giant coincidence that he would be announced right as I decide to make this next installment about the character. That said, Fujin has been a pretty significant addition to the games that he used to be a playable character in, because his gameplay was, for lack of a better term, pretty damn cool. But now, we'll have our very first Mortal Kombat 11 section in this series, because he's a pretty hot talking point as of this video being released. The God of Wind has returned, but without his competitive history, how can we compare his moveset? Well, let's find out. Fujin made his debut in Mortal Kombat via MK4, another god character to join Raiden and Shinnok in the roster and sports the powers of wind. The team could be pretty creative and use some nice 3D effects that we'd never seen before because Mortal Kombat 4 was by all accounts the first 3D title, although the game isn't fully considered by everyone to be the first 3D era game, as MK4 was the final game to feature on arcades. It is often seen as the final arcade era title for that reason. In this game, Fujin actually stood out to a degree and had some fun yet also effective moves to work with. For those that don't know, MK4 basically plays like a 3D version of UMK3. There is a sidestep, but it's not used that much, and the core of the game is run button and built-in combo strings, although these strings would be pretty universal across all characters, for the most part that is. Elaborating on those kind of things is a story for my next MK meta. Move-wise, here is Fujin's kit. Whirlwind Spin. It is a fast spin that sends the opponent flying on hit. This move can be held down to continue, and you can move around while holding the input. Levitate. This move will stun the opponent and keep them suspended in the air. They are open for a free hit while they're up there, and you can get some pretty impressive combos. It's actually very similar to Ermac's Lift in Ultimate MK3. Levitate Slam is a second input that you can do while they're stuck in Levitate. It does damage and it pops the opponent up for a follow-up. It is good to use if it's time to finish the combo for damage. Flying Knee is a simple charge attack that does good damage, useful for ending combos. Finally, Dive Kick. It's great for mobility, and on hit can actually juggle into moves like Levitate for crazy good damage early on. It can additionally be used after juggles if the launch is early enough for extensions. There is a kind of built-in combo limit where certain specials don't come out later in the combo. We can't discuss Fujin without touching on his weapon, the crossbow. A damn good weapon that had decent keep away and mostly the diagonal shots that you can perform. It is quite funny looking back, but his weapon is actually pretty damn good. Equip it mid-combo string for a short burst, or throw it for fantastic combo damage after stuns. Fujin in MK4 was kind of like a hybrid between Ermac and Kung Lao from the classic games. Levitate could be used in so many identical situations that Lift could be used for the same juggles. Throw on some higher execution than just slam into uppercut, which, you know, most of us did as kids, and you have a move with great range that bags an impressive chunk of damage, even with the max damage mechanic which ends your combo automatically if you've hit the threshold. MK4 has a technique often called the straight-up jump kick, which is doing a neutral jump kick off the ground instantly by pressing up and jump kick nearly simultaneously. It allows you to dial in combo strings from a jump kick as if it connected normally, only you did it off the ground. Fujin and his set of combo strings could infinite this off quite a few of the strings and normals. These will infinite if max damage isn't turned on, but when it is, it's simply a fast way of obtaining a giant combo. You can use this mechanic, of course, to extend the combo that you were gonna do anyway, but this trick is pretty difficult, and one of the more execution-heavy parts of the game in general. Fujin's weaknesses lied in his speed. A fair few of these moves aren't particularly instant in an incredibly fast-paced game. Fujin can make up for some of these areas with his damage and dive kick mobility, and he's a tricky character with fun combos, and a super fun weapon for ranged attacks. Lastly, Fujin was one of the only characters in MK4 that had a true infinite discovered at an early stage. The only way to obtain this was with Jax's spiked club weapon out, so in Mortal Kombat 4 it only worked against him. Positioned against the wall at the right angle, and swing into the screen would loop twice, and then you can lift them again after max damage. This can be looped if you're in the right place. This would become more prominent in Mortal Kombat Gold for the Dreamcast, as a new mechanic to this game was a weapon select option in the character select. Now, Fujin can pick the club and do this against basically everybody. Way later down the line, Mortal Kombat Armageddon would be released, the final PS2 era game. I swear I don't mean to keep going to Armageddon, it's just that these characters keep ending up here. This was a game that featured basically everyone at the time, so I'm going to reference Armageddon a lot. Fujin wasn't playable in the PS2 age of MK games until Armageddon hit shelves, a character who thrived on his special moves and was a specialist in unbreakable damage. Let's look at his moveset. Dive kick comes back and it is extremely basic. A cheeky little air option, but overall, not super game changing. Air funnel, this game's version of levitate. It slams automatically and it launches for a combo. Gusting cyclone is a variation on your spin that again sends the opponent away. This is exclusively a combo ender. Tornado wind shoots a projectile that stuns the opponent on hit for other follow-ups for a short time. Hand-to-hand is the preferred style of Fujin, and it's generally quite unimpressive and basic, but here are the moves all the same. Standing 2 is a fast launcher. This right here is your main pop-up. 1-1, 3-3, and 4-4 are all 2 hitting strings. The larger strings are all tied to 1-1. 1-1-1 and 1-1 back 3 both hit 3 times, but the main string here is 1-1-3-3, which does good damage and it knocks down. If you're poking at somebody, this is the string that you want to use. Down 1 and down 4 are your best low pokes, sporting good range and not too bad speed either. Now, a lot of characters have a good weapon swap string. Fujin most certainly does not. 1-1-3 weapon doesn't launch, and it's really minus. It's overall just not good at all. Finally here, Fujin's grab can actually ring out, which means it can death trap, no matter the health. Does that low poke guarantee a throw? Oh! Fujin's weapon is the Devastator. It's a giant sword, and move-wise, it's actually very similar indeed to Kenshi's weapon. This weapon is overall not very impressive again, and the combo potential lies in the 2-2 string, as 2-2-1, 2-2-4, and 2-2-3-3 are all combos that you can do from it. The 2-2-3-3 does insane damage standalone, so it's definitely not bad, and it's the one that you'll use the most. Outside of that, up 2 is a very fast launcher, and standing 4 is maybe one of the slowest recovering normals of all time. Seriously, you can do this move, go downstairs and make a cup of tea, come back up, and it will still be recovering. 2-2-3-3 guarantees a throw against the wall, just to make that string even more deadly. Armageddon Fujin was quite a simple one. No character in this game was deeply complicated, and you'd build a game plan around a specific strategy. Fujin's was unbreakable damage. He actually had one of the weaker air combat sets, so you often wouldn't use air combat at all for damage because your specials chained together more than held up for the damaging options anyway. His combos were so launcher heavy that he was actually very good at chewing through your breakers. Remember, in Armageddon, everyone had 3 breakers each, and that's it. And the key to Fujin's meta is that all of his win-based specials cannot be broken, so you can chain them into each other for the unbreakable damage that I talked about. If you don't want unbreakable and throw in some launchers, he gets some incredibly easy and decently damaged combos for very little effort. If you wanted to play Armageddon Fujin, hand-to-hand was faster and more poke-heavy, therefore more reliable, and it worked better with his very special move-heavy game plan. He had below-average movement speed, so his projectile and ranged game was all the more prominent. A fun character, a simple character, but not a character that sat within the higher end of the tier list or anything. Armageddon's top tiers were exceptionally silly. Now, here are where things had to change. I was going to end this video here, but guess what? Fujin is playable in Mortal Kombat for the first time in 14 years via the Aftermath expansion to MK11. Many of his old moves and tools remain in some form, and all 3 characters that were introduced in this pack, I gotta say, Fujin seems like the most interesting to me personally. His animations, specials, gameplay mechanics are all stuff that you can really dive into, and if you waited all this time for his return, you've got a lot of content there because of a couple of reasons. Fujin is execution heavy in Mortal Kombat 11, extremely so. He has some tricky inputs, some unique tricks to getting certain things to launch, stuff like that. He's not a particularly beginner-friendly character by any stretch, but once mastered, is a character very good for those that relish high execution characters. I don't play Fujin, so learning some of this for video purposes has been quite an experience. And for the variation discussion where we go into the nitty-gritty, I needed Mustard to help me out. Due to the current lockdown situation in the UK, we had to do a screen share system, so Mustard was the one performing all the tricky combos and just gave me the information to roll with. We weren't able to record this locally, which would normally result in the best quality, so I have to apologise in advance for video quality during that discussion. It was the only way we could accomplish things. String-wise, he is fiddly even with these inputs. 1-1 up 4 is a good fast punish, and it even has a KB attached, even if he totally steals Rain's super kick, come on man. 1-2-4-3-4 is another larger string that can check people on block if they try and interrupt a 1-2 stagger. Back 1-1 is a 2-hitting mid-string with an extension that is back 1-1-2-1-2. Both of these are unsafe, and the 2-1-2 has a flawless blockable gap in it. There are some mind games here involving different special moves and certain cancels that prevent you from being super unsafe. 2-3-1-2 and 2-3-2+4 come from the same starter. An important thing to note is that a few of the Fujin strings require you to input the whole thing to get every hit. I know that sounds weird, but some attacks won't come out unless you've done the entire sequence. 2-3-1-2 can be comboed off the 3rd hit, but 2-3-1 doesn't make the string come out. You've got to do the 4 hits in a row and then cancel into a special when you see the 3rd one actually connect. This is a common thing in MK11 and Fujin has a ton of them. 4-2-3 is a cool 3-hit, but the 4-2 is one of your main combo strings because it has a restand in it. Most of your combos will involve this string in some way if you're going for launches. Forward 4-3 is a string with a crushing blow that triggers when you do the string and then the 2nd hit of the string connects standalone. This isn't very practical at all, but you can do it if you end a combo in the regular string and then hit the 2nd hit standalone meaty. It's kind of the only way you can get it right now. The final strings come from key normals. Forward 2 and back 2 sport really good range and they're excellent for range control. Forward 2 and back 2 grab are strings that end these buttons in a knockdown. Finally, forward 3 is a slide normal that is used for getting in, and it has a crushing blow attached with forward 3-1, where if the 2nd hit connects on its own, you get extra damage. That's a lot of strings. I did tell you this character was complicated, but onto his specials now. I want you to remember all the stuff that we've covered in previous games to see just how much you recognize. With the universal specials, the crossbow comes back and it fires straight forward. You can fire a 2nd shot by amplifying, or you can shoot those famous diagonal bouncing shots with an amplify also. Tornado is your launcher. This move can be controlled forward or back, which is used for specific combos. In a lot of cases, the tornado needs to connect later to get the full launch. Finally, Wind Kicks is a charging kick that does really good damage by itself. Amplify for better damage still. Wind Kick is Fujin's armor break in Aftermath. MK11 in competitive is all about tournament variations with specific loadouts, essentially, and Fujin has 3 variations that are all tricky in their own way, with many of the moves being extremely important to the game plan. Variation 1, Downburst, has the following. Tornado can be amplified for another, easier launch and side switch potential. Tornado and Wind Kick can now be done airborne with their amplify properties still totally available. This air version may not look like much on its own, but here's the next move that makes this whole package much better, and that's Divine Wind. It's another form of short hop that suspends you in the air, and from this state you can do all of your short hop attacks, including the air tornado. Using this in the corner allows for some unique combos that regular tornado doesn't allow because the opponent is too close to get the full launch. This, by all means, is a combo variation, but each button that you convert off needs its own little trick to get the full launch out of it. Whether it's a grounded tornado or Divine Wind air tornado, fiddly stuff, but definitely fun to pull off. Variation 2, Cloud Walker, gains an air parry that can be used to counter air attacks or grounded attacks depending on which version that you use, and a special where you run across the air. From this state, you can do a cancel that costs defensive bar, a dive kick that knocks down, and amplify it for more damage. An air sword that acts as an airborne ender. Once again, you can amplify it for more damage. And the special move itself can be amplified on startup to launch the opponent and carry them forward. This is a really important move because after a few steps, you can perform the cancel to land and continue the combo before they hit the ground. Another situation where it's definitely fiddly, but it bags excellent damage. This launch and cancel technique allows a full combo off basically most buttons, so conversions are always possible. Warped Needle replaces the wind kicks, but it does really strong damage and chip damage to boot. Unsafe on block, but Amplify, although flawless blockable, becomes a safe option. Additionally, you can use it after a 4-2 for a plus on hit restand. The final note is that after taking at least 2 steps, Dive Kick Amplify will Crushing Blow for a launch. This entire variation is, again, fiddly to play, but absolutely rewarding and said to be right now his strongest variation. Variation 3, Cyclone, is the more unusual of the picks. Crossbow is replaced by a mid-hitting push with 3 ranges. The base version does no damage, but on Amplify will do 6%. There is a Crushing Blow tied to this, where if you do each version in a sequence, the final one will Crushing Blow for a really good chunk of damage. You can set this up in different ways. The most likely is setting it up after combos, but again, very situational. Levitate returns, but in this game, it hits the opponent when they're knocked upwards. It doesn't connect on the ground. Amplify for a rather hilarious launch, and you can time it to continue combos, but again, it takes a lot of practice because they're in the air for so long. This move can combo meterlessly in the corner for some very, very cool conversions. Finally, forward 2 and back 2 grab can now be amplified and even have a crushing blow that will trigger on beating a wake-up roll or a backdash. Cyclone is the most ranged heavy variation that he has, but you do have the choice of combos thanks to the Levitate Amplify, keeping in theme with Fujin's entire game plan. Fundamentally, Fujin across the board has excellent mobility thanks to not only his specials, but very good movement speed and dashes. He has a crushing blow on both throws, which is devastating in MK11, and his variations change the range that he wants to play and look for specific buttons. Absolutely one of the most execution-heavy characters in the whole game, which is somewhat appropriate considering his fiddly nature in Mortal Kombat 4 as well. In terms of the tier list, it's actually way too early to make these kind of claims, as he's only just come out, right? But in terms of community opinion, there is definitely people that will feel either way at the moment, definitely a community divide. This is a classic case of time will tell, but hey, at least he is incredibly fun to play. That wraps up my latest competitive history. Thank you all so much for watching and also being patient with me. I kind of had to redo this video since he made it into Mortal Kombat 11, and on top of that, he's really tricky too, so learning him in all of those games was quite the challenge. I want to thank Dead, THTB, and Mustard, all 3 of you for helping me with each version of this character, and giving me the information that I needed for this video to exist. You guys rock. Let me know who you want to feature next. Which MK characters do you want me to put under the microscope for the next episode? Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and additionally, maybe even supporting my Patreon too. Thank you for watching, and take care.